If you've been studying filmmaking for a while, then you've probably heard it again and again. If you want to learn filmmaking, you need to study films. How do you do that? And what does that even mean? What is up, homegrown filmmakers? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy Pulling Sweat and I am a homegrown filmmaker. I've been teaching myself filmmaking for a few years and I'm sharing what I've been learning so that we can all be learning together. And today I'm talking about how to study films. To some extent, this piece of advice, you need to study films, simply means to watch a lot of movies. Get immersed in film. Beginning writers are often given this piece of advice as well. If you want to learn to write, read books. But there is a method to this madness, and your film study will be far more productive and efficient if you actually follow through on the entire process. Too often, people simply just don't know how to go beyond the first step. When watching films as an audience member, the movie comes across as one piece, one single whole piece of art. But we're not your average moviegoer. When studying films as filmmakers, what we're doing is pulling out and analyzing the multitude of elements and decisions that make up this seemingly seamless end product. Or sometimes not so seamless. Let's walk through this process. So the first part of analyzing films is to know your stuff. It almost goes without saying that the more you know about something, the more you're able to see it. The more you learn about filmmaking, the more you're able to pull apart films as you're watching them. And the more you know about your specific area of filmmaking, the more you'll be able to see that area as you're watching films. For instance, my sister is a professional makeup artist, and when we watch movies together, she often walks away talking about how great the makeup was or mistakes that she noticed. That period makeup was amazing. That hair continuity was completely wrong for that scene. They didn't color match the foundation for that one actress correctly. She knows her stuff, and she's able to see way more about hair and makeup than I would ever be able to see because it's not my area of expertise. Now, she doesn't go into the movie planning to pay attention to the hair and makeup, but because she knows how it works, she knows what looks good and what looks bad, she notices things without having to pay special attention. There are films that I watched when I started learning filmmaking, and I noticed things about the story and about the cinematography, but when I watch those same films today, I am able to see way more how everything works and why the film is the way that it is. So the first part is to know your stuff and never stop learning your stuff. Pay attention to what bothers you. While studying films, you still have to be an audience member. You still have to get into the film and be entertained. But at the same time, you need to study yourself and your reactions to what is happening in the movie. We've all seen dozens, if not hundreds, of movies, and so we know what it's supposed to be like. If something is off in the filmmaking, you can sense it, even if you're not able to pinpoint exactly what it is. This is what's going on when you can point to different parts of the film and say, this moment was really confusing for some reason, I have no idea what was going on. For some reason that ending just wasn't satisfying. That film just looked cheap. The action was boring. The dialogue was so cheesy. The acting was bad. It's important to pay attention to these thoughts and feelings as you're watching the film. That is you seeing cracks in what is supposed to be a seamless film. Lots of people have these thoughts while watching a movie, but don't go any further than that. This step, paying attention to what bothers you, is only the first step in the analyzing process. It is important to make note of the problems that you have with the film, and these can be problems in any area of filmmaking, cinematography, design, writing, editing, etc. But don't stop there. Pay attention to what engages you. A lot of people make the mistake of only focusing on the negative, what's wrong with the film, and pass by one of the biggest learning tools at their disposal. What engaged you? What were the moments that made you excited? What were the moments that made you want to cry or laugh or sit up on the edge of your seat? Whenever you feel any sort of emotion toward a film, you are engaged in the storytelling and the characters. How is your area of filmmaking supporting those moments? When are you just like, wow, that was an awesome camera move. Those are stunning costumes. And that joke was so funny. The music was incredible. You need to pay attention to those moments as well. Side note, this is also a huge contributor to developing your style, whether that be a writing style or a design style, or like for a sound engineer, a unique sound. Being able to pull pieces from other filmmakers' work allows you to get a sense of what you appreciate and what you like to see up on screen. Like for me, I'm a storyteller, and that's what I see when I watch movies. And I'll be like, ooh, I love that character. Ooh, that scene was just really great. I love how it was written. I love this character arc. And I've done that with enough movies that now I can see commonalities between all the stories and moments that I like. That's my style, what consistently speaks to me from other films. But back to the main topic, studying films is about learning how not to do it, but also paying attention to what works. What have other people done right? Now you finish watching the film and you have your mental list of what bothered you and what engaged you. It's time to move on to the next and most important step, which is to figure out why. Why did that bother you? What was wrong with it? What made that shot look so cool? Why did the costumes look cheap? Why was the ending unsatisfying? What made the sound so epic? And why did that moment make me cry? This is where knowing your stuff helps you out. Knowing the rules and the craft of your specific area gives you tools to figure out the why behind what you've noticed in the film. For instance, I was watching the new King Arthur movie recently and I was trying to figure out why I found the action sequences to be so boring. They have interesting, intense cinematography and exciting music. Yet, I wanted to fall asleep. In fact, I think I did fall asleep during the final action sequence. The question I was asking myself was, why don't I care? Why don't I care enough to stay awake? Someone who knows little about story structure or cinematography would probably be able to say something like, the characters just weren't interesting enough to hold my attention, or the camera work was so chaotic and all over the place I couldn't tell what was happening. Someone who has studied those things will be able to diagnose the problem way more specifically and even come up with a solution. I came to the conclusion that the action sequences were seemingly boring for two reasons. The first being that the cinematography doesn't do a good job of showing the audience the geography of the location. For the most part, I'm not sure where all the characters are in relation to each other, and sudden location elements appear without any warning. Suddenly, they are jumping off a cliff I didn't know was there. Suddenly, they are in the training yard, and I didn't know that's where they were trying to go. Because the audience doesn't have a grasp of where things are in relation to everything else, it makes it feel random, chaotic, and impossible to follow. The second reason I didn't care was because I didn't feel like there were any emotional stakes. I knew that Arthur couldn't die. I mean, he's King Arthur and he hasn't become king yet. And I wouldn't be sad if any of the other characters died, because I didn't believe Arthur would be absolutely devastated to lose any of them. And plot-wise, all of these characters are dispensable. So my fix for that would be to give each character a job that no one else can do, make them indispensable, and use a couple key scenes to build Arthur's relationship with a couple specific people. So because I've studied my area of filmmaking, it allows me to get very specific about what is happening in the film and why. The more you know, the more you'll be able to see. And the easier it will be to figure out why something bothered you or engaged you. Lastly, the mindset. I want to point out that that little analyzation of King Arthur is nothing new. There are a ton of deconstruction videos and essays about that film on YouTube. My goal is not to figure out something that hasn't been figured out before. My goal is to train my mind in this analyzing process, to train my mind to pay attention while I'm watching a film, and then to figure out the why. Every movie I watch is a chance to exercise this skill, and I think it's a very valuable skill to have, because you're going to have to do the same thing to your own films. You are going to have to look at whatever you're working on and pay attention to what bothers you and what engages you. Why? And how can you make it better? That's the goal and the mindset of studying films. Finding what you like and what you don't like, with the chance to practice problem solving those things. Another great way to exercise this skill is to watch other people's essays and breakdowns on YouTube. I have listed out some of my all-time favorite videos in the description below, and I've tried to include a variety of topics, not just storytelling and cinematography. Work on this skill and you'll be able to start studying films without having to think really hard about it, making every film a learning experience. That is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. What are your guys' favorite essays and breakdowns on YouTube? Leave them in the comments below because I would absolutely love to see them. As always, hit like, subscribe, comment. It really helps to boost this channel out to reach more people. I'm Annie Pulling Sweat and I'm a homegrown filmmaker. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.